Hello, and welcome to our Talk That Talk replay. I'm here with the cast, ETA, the Essential Theatrical Associates, and we're here to give you that opportunity again to watch, enjoy, and see the show. At the very end, we have a talkback. A talkback is where you can ask us a series of questions in the comments, and if you want to know how did we do this, or how long did it take us to do this, and keep in mind we wrote the show too with other stories involved with it. So if you have any questions about how that's taken care of, how that's done, please comment below in the comment section and it will come up. At the very end of the show, it's about roughly an hour long, we will come back on and we'll answer any questions and introduce ourselves and tell you exactly what ETA is about and what we do. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Talk that talk.
Since the beginning of time, there have been tellers of stories and listeners to hear them. Every person has a story inside them, and every person has a story to tell. Today, we're going to celebrate the art of African and African American storytelling and talk that talk. But first, we're going to need your help.
African American storytelling began on the beautiful continent of Africa. In some villages and kingdoms, these storytellers were called griots. What were they called? That's right, griots. They were incredibly special and very important to the people in their community. Some even believed that griots were magical because they knew the stories of every person that lived in the village. They were walking libraries.
At night, the children of the village would gather around the griot, and he or she would tell them stories about how the world was created, or about a time when animals could walk and talk, and when people could fly, just like birds. These stories would teach the children of the village about right and wrong, how to treat the world around them, and how to treat each other.
Before the griot would begin a story, he or she would say, "I'll go," which means, "Are you ready to listen?" And the children will reply, "I may," which means, "Yes, I'm ready to hear." Let's try it. I'll go. You say, "I think we could do better than that." I'll go. Very good. I think we're ready. Our first story comes from the African country of Nigeria. And Carol Griot is here to share this story.
This is the story of the Yasser chief, Ago. The Yes Sir Chief was called Chief Yes Sir because everyone on his court said yes sir to everything he said. If he asked them what they thought about something he was going to do, he would say,
What do you think?
and all the men around him would say,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are correct.
and he loved it. Well, on this particular day, the chief called the council together and everyone hustled into the chambers and he sat on his throne and said,
I have a problem and I want there to be a solution. You are my great wise men. Tell me what to do.
and of course, they nodded and said,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
their chief said,
I have been unable to sleep for the last several weeks, and it's really getting on my nerves.
Your Highness, what could be the problem?
Frogs.
the chief replied.
Frogs?
Yes, frogs. Don't you hear them, frogs? They're making the loudest noise you can imagine. I mean, all night long they are singing, and I can't get any sleep. Something must be done about them.
They said,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want there to be an edict throughout the land, and I want every frog killed. So maybe I can get some sleep.
and all the wise men said,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
however, there was one wise woman in the court that always sat to the side and a little bit to the back, and she always sat there with a solemn look on her face, while everyone else said yes. And the chief always noticed her, and he was always irritated with this woman. The chief said,
What is it? You are sitting there. Everyone is telling me, yes, I am right. And you're just sitting there. What have you to say for yourself?
and that wise woman said,
Chief, everything is connected.
Well, what does that mean?
the wise woman said again,
Everything is connected, Your Highness.
Oh, ridiculous. Okay, everybody disband. And I want everyone to go out and get rid of those frogs so I can get some sleep.
and sure enough, they did. They got rid of every frog in the village, killed them all, exterminated them. And finally, their chief could sleep, and he slept soundly for days and days, and weeks, and months. One day, the chief sat in his palace on his throne, and a mosquito bit him, and there were more.
What is going on?
He quickly called a meeting.
Councilmen, come in, come in. But they're everywhere. Mosquitoes, mosquitoes, don't you see them?
They all came into the chambers.
Your Highness.
Your Highness. Your Highness.
Shut up and sit down. Don't you see them? They're everywhere. Mosquitoes, mosquitoes. Oh, you dumb people. I told you to get rid of the frogs, but no one told me this would happen if I did. Now the mosquitoes are killing us. How can you stand it?
Everyone was slapping themselves and trying to kill the mosquitoes. The chief looked to the side and saw that one wise woman that didn't agree with him. He said,
What do you have to say? You could have helped us. You could have saved us. What do you have to say for yourself?
and that one wise woman looked at the chief and said,
Your Highness, everything is connected.
a story, a story. Let it come. Let it go.
When a storyteller says, a story, let it come, let it go, That means we have reached the end of our story. Poor Chief, yes, sir. He did not understand that everything serves a purpose. There's a reason we are all here. We are all connected. Our next tale also takes place in Africa, and it's the story of a very sneaky spider named Anansi.
Argo, I think you've got it. Anansi and the turtle goes to dinner. One day, Anansi, that spider everyone knows is a trickster, was just sitting down to eat a meal when Turtle passed by his house. Turtle had been traveling all day long and was very hungry. He smelled Anansi's yams cooking. His mouth began to water. Now, it was customary in this part of the world, and especially near holiday times, for the host to offer meals to anyone who happened to drop in at supper time. So Turtle knew Anansi would offer him some food if he stopped for a visit. Turtle knocked on Anansi's door. When Anansi heard the knock, he frowned. He did not want to share his meal with anyone. But he knew he had to answer the door. He opened the door and pretended he did not see Turtle. He looked way up, but of course, Turtle was way down to the ground. Anansi said.
No one here?
But just as he closed the door, Turtle called.
I'm down here, Anansi. It's me, Turtle.
Anansi had to look way down. And when Turtle caught Anansi's eye, he said,
How nice to see you, Anansi. And what a wonderful smell.
He sniffed the air, inhaling the scent of those delicious yams. Anansi knew he had no choice, and so he looked with some irritation at Turtle and said,
Come in then and share my meal.
But Anansi's heart was not in this offer. Anansi was greedy and did not want to share his meal with anyone. He stood a moment trying to figure out what he would do. When they sat, Anansi came up with an idea. Just as Turtle reached for a big bite of yam, Anansi said,
Turtle, it is impolite to come to the table without washing. Just look at your hands. They're filthy.
Turtle was ashamed. His hands were dirty, for he had been crawling down the road all day long. He crawled quickly outside and trotted as fast as he could towards the creek. And there he washed his hands, all four. Then he hurried back to Anansi's house. Just as Turtle reached for a yam, Anansi said,
Turtle, look at your hands.
Well, sure enough, Turtle's hands were dirty again because he crawled up the trail that led to Anansi's house. So once again, he waddled back to the creek. This time, when he finished washing, he crawled upon the grass because of back to Anansi's house. By the time Turtle reached the table, the yams were all gone. Anansi had eaten every single one. Turtle's stomach rumbled with hunger, but he simply said,
Thank you for your hospitality, Anansi. Someday you must come and stop in at my home and have a meal with me.
A few days later, Anansi awoke feeling hungry, so he decided to go to Turtle's house at mealtime. Turtle lived at the bottom of the creek, but when Anansi arrived, Turtle was sitting on the bank.
Welcome, Anansi.
Turtle said,
Did you come for a meal?
Yes, I did.
Anansi said,
How kind of you to offer.
Follow me. The table is all set.
and he dived under the water. Anansi jumped in the water right behind Turtle. But instead of sinking, he popped right up to the surface and floated there. No matter how he tried to dive, he always popped up to the top. He jumped to rocks. He tried to swim with all his legs. Still could not reach Turtle's table. Then Anansi had an idea. He gathered all the pebbles on the shore and put them in the pocket of his handsome dinner jacket, the one he had worn especially for this meal. Soon, his pockets bulged with pebbles. This time, when Anansi dived, he sank down to the bottom of the creek and he swam to Turtle's table. Anansi's eyes popped wide open at the table full of shrimps, clams, and crabs. He eagerly reached for the plate, and Turtle said,
But Anansi, in my home, we always remove our dinner jackets before sitting down at the table.
Sure enough, Anansi saw that Turtle wore no jacket. Anansi looked longingly at the food, but he slowly slipped off his jacket. And as he did, the jacket sank to the bottom of the creek, and Anansi popped right to the top. He floated, frustrated and hungry, as he watched Turtle down below, chomping happily on a juicy crab.
I've been tricked.
Anansi cried. He lay upon the shore and thought of all the tricks he would play in return. And everyone knows Anansi did just that. A story, a story. Let it come, let it go.
Are we enjoying the story so far? Well, griots would not only tell stories about what happens when we are selfish or what happens when we do not listen to wise advice. They also told stories that would give the people of the village hope and tell them how to be strong and how to find light when days were very dark and sad. Unfortunately, there were incredibly dark and sad days ahead for the people of Africa. That dark and sad time is what is known as the African slave trade. Millions of African people were stolen from their land and taken to new lands in the Caribbean and the Americas to work. They traveled the ocean by ship on a path we now call the Middle Passage.
The slave traders tried to take away the Africans' history and their stories, but they could not steal the stories because the stories lived inside of the people. In fact, Anansi found a new home in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, the griots became the elders or the older people in the community. And they no longer said, I'll go, I'll make. It changed to crick, crack, which means the same thing. Let's try it. Crick, crack. One more time. Crick, crack. Our next story is about Anansi, who traveled in the Caribbean.
Crick, Anansi and the Potter Beans. Long ago, before Anansi was known far and wide for his tricks, he and his wife, Aso, visited her family's house. The family was given a party for Anansi and Aso to celebrate the fine springtime weather. Anansi was proud of himself and he wished to show himself off. Let us dress in the finest clothes, he said to Aso, and she agreed. She loved to wear her pretty dresses and her gaily colored headscarves. And Anansi dressed in his finest clothes, and he wore a hat too, a nice tall one. I think I look important in this hat, he said to Aso, and she agreed. So off they set for her parents' house. And when they walked in, all the guests turned and smiled and gasped. They were impressed indeed. No one had seen a hat like Anansi's. And so all evening long, he walked around the room showing off his hat, his pipe, and his fancy trousers, and bragging about how well he was doing. Anansi was proud of his wealth, and he wanted everyone to admire him. But Anansi was also greedy and hungry, and he walked to the table spread with fine food, ready to fill his plate as full as he could. There it was, a feast fit for kings. Lemon soup and curried corn, sausages, chili, guinea fowl, eggs and fufu, and jollof rice, baked yams and boiled sweet potato, and roasted cassava. There were stews of every sort, goats and lamb and fish, and breads and spice butter, and palm wine. Anansi ate and ate until his stomach was so full he couldn't eat another bite. But something was wrong. Anansi scratched his head. Where are the beans? He said, whispered to Aso. You see, Anansi loved hot beans more than anything else in the world. I don't see them, Aso whispered. But there's plenty of other food to eat, my dear. Anansi ate another helping of fish and another yam. And still he craved those nice hot beans. Then he began to wonder. His father-in-law knew he loved hot beans. Why would he neglect to serve them? Perhaps he was hiding those beans. Anansi sniffed the air. He sniffed again. Excuse me, he said to his father-in-law, but do you mind if I step outside to catch a breath of air? Of course not, his father-in-law said. But this was a trick. He had no intention of walking outside. He just wanted to sneak into the kitchen, and the way outside was through the kitchen. Off he walked, and sure enough, he caught a whiff of something. Yes, he said under his breath. There was the pot of beans boiling on the stove. He hiding them from me, Anansi said to himself. How dare he try to keep me from those beans? Actually, his mother-in-law had just forgotten to serve them. And so, checking to make sure no one was watching, Anansi found a satchel, and he filled us with spoonful and spoonful of beans. And when the bag was full, he placed it on his head and covered it up with his hat. Anansi, with those beans buried under his hat, walked quickly back into the party. So, he said to his wife, I think it's time for us to leave. But Anansi, the party's in our honor. Aso argued. Just then her father-in-law announced to everyone, I wish to make an important speech. Please, everyone gather around. Anansi's father-in-law began to talk. I want to say how proud I am of my fine son-in-law, Anansi. He is good to my daughter, and he is good to me and to my wife. And we wish everyone to know how fortunate we feel to have such a fine son-in-law. That's nice, Anansi said, but his head was sweating. for those beans were hot. Thank you. And now we leave, he said. But his father-in-law waved his hand. Not yet. Don't leave. I have so many things to say. And everyone began to clap their hands. More! 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 They cried to the father-in-law. But now Anansi's hair was really worried, for those beans were burning his head. And sweat began to pour down his face. Thank you, Anansi cried. But you've already said more than enough. Never, said his father-in-law. There aren't enough fine words in the language for praising my fine son-in-law. More! More! Everyone cried. Now Anansi was in serious pain. And so he tried to lift the hat a little bit to let out some air. And when he did, the beans fell out of the bag and poured down his head onto the handsome trousers, his fine linen shirt, and down his sandals. What is this? His father-in-law cried at the sight. Are you a thief? Thief? Thief! Everyone cried and Anansi ran up the door with his wife behind him. Nancy's a thief! Nancy's a thief! A thief! Everyone cried again. And ever since that day, Anansi had been bald. A symbol of his greed. A story, a story. Let it come, let it go.
After leaving the Caribbean, the enslaved Africans that were still on the ships were transported to North America. Now, they were forbidden to read and write. However, the invaders could not stop the slaves from teaching their children lessons and sharing their stories through song and dance. Now, the animals changed and the language changed, but the lessons stayed the same. So now when the storytellers in the United States began a story, they would say, way back. And you say, way back. Okay, let's try it. Way back. You say, way back. Very good. I think we are ready for our next story about a signifying monkey.
Way back, you say way back. I say way back, you say way back. Signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You're always lying, signifying that the monkey with me. Oh, signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You are always lying, signifying that the monkey with me. Said the signifying monkey to the lion one day. When there's a great big elephant down the way. Going around talking, I'm sorry to say. But your mama is a scandal spread. Yeah, you talking about your mama, your grandmama too. You don't show much respect for you. Now you weren't there, and I sure am glad. But what he said about your mama made me mad. Lion said, I'll take care of him. I'll tear that elephant down from me. He shook the jungle with a mighty roar. Ah! And he took off like a shot from a 44. Found the elephant where the tall grass grows. Said, I'll come to punch you in your long nose. The elephant looked at the lion in surprise. Said, boy, you better pick on somebody your size. Lion wouldn't listen. He made a pass. The elephant slapped him down in the grass. Lion roared and he sprang from the ground. That's when that elephant really went to town. I mean, he was that lion for the rest of the day. I still don't see how that lion got away. He dragged on off more dead than alive. That's when that monkey started his signifying jive. Signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You are all right and signifying that the monkey is me. Oh, signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You are all right and you're signifying that the monkey is me. Monkey looked down and said, ooh, wait. What is this beat up mess I see? Can't you lion? Do tell. He whipped your head to a fairly well. Gave you a beating that was tough enough. You supposed to be king of the jungle, ain't that some stuff? You overrun pussycat, don't you roar? I'll hop down there with your tail some more. Monkey got to laughing, jumping up and down. Took Mr. Limb and he plunged to the ground. The lion was on him with all 4 feet. Gonna grind that monkey to hamburger meat. Monkey looked up with tears in his eyes. Said, please, Mr. Lion, I apologize. I meant no harm, please let me go. I'll tell you something that you really need to know. Lion stepped back to hear what he'd say. You know that monkey scampered up a tree and got away? What I wanted to tell you, the monkey hollered then. If you fool with me, I'll stick that elephant on you again. Lion said, you jive. You and your monkey children want to stay alive. Up in them trees is where you better stay. That's where they are to this very day. Signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You are always blind, signifying there's no monkey with me. Oh, signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You are always blind, signifying there's no monkey with me. I said, there's no monkey with me. You heard me, there's no monkey with me. A story, let it come and let it go. Oh, a story, let it come and let it go.
That was a sneaky little monkey. Does he remind you of someone else who was sneaky? Anansi, that's right. Anansi made it to the United States, but he became she, and her name was Aunt Nancy, where she met her cousin, Brer Rabbit. Her cousin was just as sneaky and sometimes got into the same type of trouble.
Way back, Brer Rabbit earns $1 a minute. One fine morning, Brer Fox decided to plant him a patch of goober peas. He set to with a will, and before you know it, he had raked and hoed out a beautiful patch of ground and planted a fine planting of peas. It didn't take too long before those goober vines grew tall and long, and the peas ripened up good and smart. Now, Brer Rabbit, he'd watched Brer Fox planting the goobers, and he told his children and Ms. Rabbit where they could find the patch. Soon as those peas were ripe, the little rabbits and Brer Rabbit would sneak on in and grab up them goobers by the handful. It got so bad that when Brer Fox came to the goober patch, he could hardly find a pea to call his own. Well, Brer Fox, he was plenty mad that he had worked so hard on those peas, only to have them eaten by someone else. He suspected Brer Rabbit was to blame for this, but that cunning rabbit had covered his tracks so well that Brer Fox couldn't catch him. So Brer Fox came up with a plan. He found a smooth spot in his fence where a cunning rabbit could sneak in, and he set a trap for Brer Rabbit at that spot. He tied a rope to a nearby hickory sapling and bent it nearly double. Then he took the other end of the rope and made a loop knot, which he fastened with a trigger right around the hole in the fence. If anybody came through the crack to steal his peas, the knot would tighten around their body, the sapling would spring upright, and they would be left hanging from the tree for everyone to see. The next morning, Brer Rabbit came a-slipping through the hole in the fence. At once, the trigger sprung, the knot tightened on his forelegs, and the hickory tree snapped up right quick as you please. Brer Rabbit found himself swung aloft betwixt the heaven and the earth, swinging to and fro from the hickory sapling. He couldn't go up and he couldn't go down. He just went back and forth. Brer Rabbit was in a fix, no mistake. He was trying to come up with some glib explanation for Brer Fox when he heard someone a-rumbling and a-bumbling down the road. It was Brer Bear looking for a bee tree so he could get him some honey. As soon as Brer Rabbit saw Brer Bear, he came up with a plan to get himself free.
Howdy, Brer Bear,
he called cheerfully. Brer Bear squinted around here and there, wondering where the voice had come from. Then he looked up and saw Brer Rabbit swinging from the sapling.
Howdy, Brer Rabbit,
he rumbled.
How are you this morning?
Niddling, Bear, just niddling. Brer Bear was wondering why Brer Rabbit was up in the tree, so he asked him about it. Brer Rabbit grinned and said that he was earning $1 a minute from Brer Fox.
$1 a minute?
Brer Bear explained.
I'm keeping the crows away from the goober's patch.
Brer Rabbit explained and went on to say that Brer Fox was paying $1 a minute to whomever would act as a scarecrow for him. Well, Brer Bear liked the sound of that. He had a big family to feed. He could use the money. When Brer Rabbit asked him if he would like to have the job, Brer Bear agreed. Brer Rabbit showed him how to bend the sapling down and remove the knot from his forepaws. When Brer Rabbit was free, Brer Bear climbed into the knot, and soon he was hanging aloft betwixt the heaven and the earth, swinging to and fro from the sapling, growling at the birds to keep them away from the goober patch. Brer Rabbit laughed and laughed at the sight of Brer Bear up there in the sapling. He scampered down the road to Brer Fox's place and told him that his trap had been sprung and the goober thief was hanging from the hickory tree. Brer Fox grabbed his walking stick and ran down the road after Brer Bear. When Brer Fox saw Brer Bear hanging from the tree, Brer Fox called him a goober thief. Brer Fox ranted and raved and threatened to hit Brer Bear with his walking stick. He yelled so loud that Brer Bear didn't have time to explain nothing. Brer Rabbit knew that Brer Bear would be plenty mad at him when he found out he had been tricked. And so he ran on down the road and hid in the mud beside the pond so that only his eyeballs stuck out, making him look like a big old bullfrog. By and by, a very grumpy Brer Bear came a lumbering down the road.
Howdy, Brer Bullfrog.
Brer Bear exclaimed when he saw Brer Rabbit's eyes sticking out of the mud.
You seen Brer Rabbit around here anywhere? Brer Rabbit just went down the road.
He told the grumpy Brer Bear in a deep croaking voice that sounded just like the voice of a frog. Brer Bear thanked him and trotted down the road, growling fiercely. When Brer Bear was out of sight, Brer Rabbit jumped out of the mud. He washed himself off in the pond and then scampered home, chuckling to himself at how he had escaped Brer Fox and Brer Bear, and already thinking up a new way to get into Brer Fox's goober patch to get him some peas to eat. A story. Let it come, let it go. Ribbit.
Our last story is about an ancient people who forgot that they could fly. They were like caged birds who wanted to feel the freedom of flight.
Freebird leaps on the back of the winds and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wings in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down its narrow cage can seldom see through its bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to see. A caged bird sings with a fearful trill, things unknown but longs for still, and its tune is heard on a distant hill, for a caged bird sings of freedom. A free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the batworms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on a grave of dreams, and his shadow shouts on a nightmare screams. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to see. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Kakua. Kakua. Ooh, oh, ooh, oh, way back in parts of West Africa, there was an ancient people that could fly. They would spread their arms wide and big, beautiful wings would appear. They would soar up in the sky and sing this sweet song. Can you try that? Kakuba. Ooh, wah, wah. Ooh, wah, wah.
They would pick berries from the trees and they would soar around the skies as they pleased. And everything was in its place. Until one day, some invaders came with a plan to steal all the resources from the land. And in time, they grew very greedy and even stole the people. Chained them up one by one and two by two. Most of the flying Africans forgot what they could do. Where the oppressors stripped them of their freedom and their name. And in this land of the free and home of the brave, the African people were made to be slaves. Then the oppressors called themselves masters and overseers. And they made sure the African people worked to make them money out in the field. Well, during this time, there was a young girl named Lucretia. What was her name?
Lucretia.
Lucretia. And Lucretia was a wise young girl. She had been fathered with her mother and was being raised on a different plantation by the elders. Now, the elders taught her lessons, and they told her stories all the time. Now, some of the elders were very sad and very angry, and they wanted to give up. They would tell her stories about the night being over and not being able to go on anymore. And they would sing songs like this.
Soon I will be done with the troubles of this world. Troubles of this world. The troubles of this world. Soon I will be done with the troubles of this world. I'm going home to live with God.
Now, when Lucretia heard those stories, she wanted to give up. She wondered if her people would ever be free. She didn't know. But then there were those elders who would say, "No, girl, we can't give up. We've got to be angry. We've got to fight." And they would sing songs like this.
Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything is gonna be alright. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Everything is gonna be alright.
Now, when Lucretia heard those songs, she wanted to fight. But that wasn't good either because the oppressors had these whips and they would keep her down. And she didn't want to go out that way either. Then she took to the elders who told her stories about home. They would tell her stories about the richness of her homeland. They would tell her stories about her people and how they used to fly. And on those nights, when Lucretia heard those stories, she would have these dreams, these sweet dreams where she would fly. And in those dreams was the first time she would feel a sense of freedom. She would have those dreams night after night. And over weeks, she would not only feel her freedom, but the freedom of her children and her children's children. One day, she was very poor, and she could not work as hard as she used to. She was out there on the plantation giving her very best, but just couldn't seem to get it together. Well, the oppressor came over to her and he began to yell at her. And all the other enslaved Africans gathered around the young girl and was trying to help her. But he pulled out his whip and he began to whip her and whip her. As she fell to her knees, she closed her eyes and she remembered what she had in the night before. She could feel the stories of her people in her body. And with the little breath she had, she began to sing out very slow. The other Africans heard her and they began to sing with her. And they could feel each other getting stronger and they sang out louder. And just then, Lucretia stood up and she looked her oppressor in the eye and she stepped into the air and she began to fly. The other Africans kept singing and they became a mighty chorus and they rose in the air and flew. They all flew to freedom and they flew real high. They flew over the mountains of adversity and over the oceans of inferiority. They were like beautiful brown birds all the sky. And the rhythm set their stories and their song and cry. You see, the African people. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, a story, a story. Let it come, let it go.
We are so happy you came out and allowed us to share these extraordinary stories with you. Today, the art of African American storytelling is dying.
We no longer gather around the knees of our elders, our own very special griot, to learn from the mistakes of the Yes Sir Chief, Anansi the Spider, Signifying Monkey, and Brer Rabbit.
We don't teach our children how to fly over the mountains of adversity and inferiority. This tradition has been replaced with YouTube, cell phones, and video games.
We cannot let this special tradition die. It is a part of who we are. And if we lose our stories, we lose ourselves, our history.
The stories we told you today were passed down from us to us from our great grandmother and grandfathers who lived across the ocean, and now we give them to you. Who will you tell them to? What would you do with them?
A story,
A story.
Let it come.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
So here's a song called Through the Fire. Thank you. Broken lives and broken wings of men, so you can live and fly again and move to a place that love began.
I can't right now.
Broken lives and broken wings and men, so you can live and fly again and move to a place that love began. So awesome how this fire can heal, even when it hurts so bad. Awesome how this fire can heal, even when it hurts so bad. Through the fire, both dead men make me smile again. Through the fire, through the fire. Up to that night, make me smile again. Through the fire, broken lives and broken wings, love can mend, so you can live and fly again and live to a place that love is dead. Love will take your life and make it new, so you can live and smile again and live to a place that love is dead. So awesome how I can hear, even when it hurts so bad. Awesome how I can hear, even when it hurts so bad. Through the fire, look at me, make me smile again. Through the fire, hold again. Through the fire, took my way, make me smile again. Through the fire, hold again. Hold again. Hold again. I'm whole 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 again.
Hello. So thank you all so much for joining us for the Talk That Talk Back replay and talk back. I'm Dee Selmore, and I'm going to host this. I'm one of the co-founders of the Essential Theatrical Associates, and so I'm going to host this and moderate the questions and ask questions of the actors and writers who we have here today. First, let me give a thank you to the Leroy Collins Leon County Public Library for partnering with us, and giving us an opportunity to share our work with all of the library patrons, and to the Leon County School System for giving us an opportunity to share this work with their students. Thank you so much. So without further ado, we are going to introduce ourselves, and then you can post any comments or questions that you have in the chat, and we'll share them with the rest of the group. We'll answer as many as we can. So we just lost Shagun for a moment there. That's all right. We'll get him back. So let's start then with Kevin. Thank you. Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm K. Sidney Bronson, a FAMU, Florida A&M University alumni, co-founder of Essential Theatrical Associates also. And I'm glad you joined us this evening.
Thank you, Kevin. I see we got Miss Carol up next. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Carol Hill. I'm also a graduate of the FAMU Essential Theater Program. I am also one of the co-founders of the Essential Theatrical Associates. I'm so happy to share this experience with everyone, and I hope that you enjoyed the show.
Thank you. And we have Shagun back. All right, let's get old Shagun in there. Can you hear us okay? I think he's frozen. That's all right. We'll go ahead to Brian. Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Olusegun Williams. I think I'm the only member of the group who did not attend FAMU. I started my career in theater in 1970 in Miami, so I've been bouncing around for about 50 years now. This was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shagun. So we'll go back to Brian.
Hello, I'm Brian F. Mitchell, also a co-founder of the Essential Theatrical Associates, and also a proud graduate of FAMU Essential Theater. And happy to be here.
And last but not least, Monica Woods. I think she might be frozen too.
Hello, I'm Monica Woods, also a I'm frozen? Also a co-founder of the Essential Theatrical Associates and a graduate of the FAMU Essential Theater. Welcome to the family, and I'm glad you could join us this afternoon.
Thank you, Monica. So now I'm going to put this out there in for anyone who would like to answer first, who would like to talk about what is ETA and how did we all get together? Who would like to jump in?
Ooh, I gotta remember.
So how about this? Carol, will you explain what ETA is and then I'll fill in how we all got together?
Absolutely. So ETA, or Essential Theatrical Associates, we're a group of individuals who, in just basic terms, want to hone the artistic craft of our community, and our main focus is theater and all the elements within theater. We are kind of consultants of the theatrical world. So in basic layman terms, that's what we do.
And so thank you, Carol. So I'll tell the story. We
I think I
were
lost
pulled together.
everyone, so I might be flying solo here. And the
Okay,
second part of the question,
you're okay. You're okay. We're here.
Okay, you're coming back. So the second part of the question was, how did we all get together?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure we all have different versions of that story, but we've all been shows together at some point. We were in school together, but there are some deeper elements as how we came to start the organization. So I'll let someone else pick up on that part.
Okay. We were doing a performance for the Riley House. A few of us, one of our other co-founders, Lilita Forbes, who is a little under the weather right now, so she's not with us. But she and I and Monica got together and did a piece for the Riley House fundraiser. And we were like, let's keep going, let's see what happens. And we started, we did another one, and then we got asked to do a performance for the 60th anniversary of the Tallahassee bus boycott, and everybody, we were like, we start pulling together the talented people that we know, and pull them all together to bring to put a full production together. Then we did the dedication of the Anita Favors Plaza downtown in Cascades, near Cascades. And we've just been going ever since. We've been going ever since. We did a personalized, specialized performance for her. And again, it just kept going from there. We have had many nights around Carol's dining room table working these things out. Lots of lately lots of Zoom calls and what have you, but we make it work. Again, we all, FAMU grads and went to class together and wanted to keep making art. So thank you guys. Let's keep going with this next question. What was it? I guess this question is for Monica. Monica was our writer and arranger of this piece, Monica R. Woods. And so let me ask, what inspired you to write this particular piece? And what sources did you draw from to create these stories? You're muted.
I'm muted. I was muted. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out this technology thing. My bad. Okay. So D came to me and he said, we need to do something for the library during Black History Month. And so we were thinking, how celebrate the art of storytelling. When I was a little girl, at Christmas, I have three sisters, there of us. And we would get a limited number of gifts. And one of them was always a book. And that was my favorite gift of all. It was always the book because my mom would read to us every night. And so that inspired my love for reading. And it made me reach further into trying to do research and discover the art of storytelling. So ever since then, I've loved the art of storytelling. There are so many storytellers in my family, and I just felt like it was an important tradition for us to celebrate. So I pull from stories that I've heard in my own family, in sources, watching storytellers on the internet, and also books from the library, especially the anthology Talk That Talk, which this show is named after, that anthology, Talk That Talk.
Thank you. And so in talking about that, can you talk more about the oral tradition of storytelling and why it's so special to the African American culture?
Oh, I feel like this is all on me. Okay. So, okay.
You wrote it.
So, I know. But actually, the actual stories I didn't write.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like all in between narration and things like that, I did write that, but I did compile the stories. So, some of the stories are centuries old. And they originated in Africa, as you saw during our presentation. And so, over the years, as it's passed down from generation to generation, almost like the telephone game, if you've ever played the telephone game, you tell it to one person and they tell it to the next person. And by the time it gets all the way around the circle, the story is totally different. There are some things that are the elements have changed. Same thing with these stories. Started in Africa, went to the Caribbean, to Brazil, to the United States. And language changed, but the essence of the story and the principles stayed the same. And so now we don't tell those stories anymore, and it's important because it's a part of our history and our oral tradition. Like with my family, my cousin Bernard, he was the storyteller, and there are a lot of things that I would not have known about my grandfather, my great 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 grandfather, had it not been for our griot Uncle Bernard, so a cousin Bernard. So that's why I really wrote this piece and why it's important. So if we don't know who we are, we're lost, and we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. So I think that's why storytelling is so very important.
Awesome. Thank you. So for this question is for everybody. Talk about why a digital performance, And talk about the recording process. Talk about the process of getting this together and getting it out to everyone. Whoever wants to dive in first, go for it.
Well, the digital is mainly we in COVID, so can't do live theater. We can't have hundreds of people sitting down in one spot enjoying the show. There's a lot of laughing and crying, and apparently all of that has coronavirus in it, so we can't be live with it. So that's how we decided to do digital. We went through many process, different platforms. Started with Zoom. And then we discovered StreamYard. And from there, we try to make the magic that we make on stage on the digital to try to get it to as many people as we can as theater people and use this platform, the internet platform, because that's the way how things is going right now. It's probably going to be here for a while. So yeah, that's your.
You think it's going to continue even after?
Somewhat, not as heavy as it is now, and I know that when it comes down to like public domain stuff, like what we just did, we took public domain information and we put it together. But when it comes down to the stuff that are owned and all that, I'm not sure if it's going to change back to how it used to be. Because live theater in comparison to streaming it and recording it, it's no longer live. So there's sure there's some elements that will stay in place after when this COVID situation is over.
Awesome. So who would like to talk about some of the challenges and the triumphs of recording?
Well,
I see you.
the challenge is making sure, as they can see, some of us are delayed. I'm a little delayed and whatnot, so that's definitely a challenge. When you're in this platform here, lighting is very important to catch these backgrounds that we have, and so sometimes it gets kind of wonky, and trying to figure out how to get the best picture for everybody, so that was a challenge, and that took us into some late nights sometime because we got to work those things out. So.
Because the weather can change it, and it can anything.
Yeah. So it's all connected.
Very true. So, what are some of the bonuses about working in this medium? What are some of the great things what were some of the good things about working in the virtual world?
Save gas.
I save gas, yeah. I'm up here in my house.
Don't have to leave home. Yes. One of the beautiful things about it too is we were able to expand our reach like crazy. Before we were doing this as a Black History program. And so we were limited to just the kids who came to see it at the theater, but now we were able, at the library. But through doing it digitally, we were able to reach so many more kids and got some tremendous feedback from all of the people that were watching it. Just had a great experience. So that was one of the good things too. Good thing. So let's talk about as actors. What is happening in this virtual space? How is it different? How, for you personally, what are the differences with being live and being, in this virtual space?
Well, one of the main things with the virtual space is the camera doesn't lie. So you have to emote, show your emotions. Movement is very, very limited. Because you can't, people are not there. You're only seeing us from the chest up. You're not seeing all this, all the hand and any gestures that we do and whatnot. It takes away from the picture that you're trying to. So everything is compact. And so when we all been trained on stage, so
it's make it we've got to be in the back.
Yeah, we got to be constrained. So, but it's fun.
So anybody else with the differences or any challenges or
One of the challenges I think as a performer is that give and take energy. The energy that you get from the audience, the energy that you get from your fellow performers. That's one of the things that I miss. Because there's nothing like feeling the energy of everyone around you. And you just, I don't know, it's just different. It's a different feeling. And I can't wait till we get back into that space, even though this is a great platform, but there's nothing like that.
Very true. Very true. So how about the differences between doing because all of us are we've been doing plays that for the most part are pretty heavy or musicals or what have you. So talk about the differences in doing a kids show. Doing a show or that's specifically for children.
You can't cuss.
You can't. You gotta be very careful.
Out there now.
Well, as a elementary school teacher, I like to consider this to be more of a family show than it is a children's show.
Okay.
I feel as though the whole family can enjoy, and I like to think of most shows, especially theater shows that are labeled children's shows, are more family oriented because it's that element of live theater which adults should be able to appreciate and understand and get. Then is that element of being able to have a connection with your child with what's going on stage, and then another conversation after the fact. That the content, because as you can see with our show, we get from a very kiddie stories like Yes Sir Chief and Nancy, and then you go to a little bit more mature stories. People Can Fly and the Cage Bird Sing, which I'm sure all of that goes over their head. Actually, I'm not sure. I played it to my kindergartners, and when it got to that point, it was all over their head. But I was able to have that discussion with them, and they were able to understand. So it gives that opportunity of the point that we're trying to make of keeping that tradition, that culture alive, and that conversation back and forth.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing that up because that's a perfect segue into talking about different things from the show itself. So we had, first of all, a comment from the library. I'll put it up again. He asked, which part of the performance did each of you like performing the best? Go for it, Kat. Go for it, Kate Sydney.
Brer Bear. That's just like it's like this is Halloween today. So I mean, I love dressing up. I love being extra. I like having I'll say, how can I play this bear? So yeah, I gotta find real fur and I'm extra. But I love character stuff and stuff like that. Yeah.
And anybody else? What you got? I love it too, Kevin.
The Anansi and the turtle. The Anansi and the turtle go to dinner. I think it was pretty fun. It was fun to do it in the midst of it, and like I said before, I showed it to one of my kindergarten classes, and just the and pre-K. It was just the wow. Wait, what? You're there. This is you. That's you. I'm like, no, that's not me. I have a mask on, so I'm like, no, that's not me. That's not me. I was like, no, that's you. So I think that was pretty fun watching them put two and two together and being able to do it. It was kind of hard. Like, and Bear Rabbit, I did like that one too. That was the most interaction I had to do with people, and there's no one here. There's no one here. There's no one here, so it's hard to try to talk to people. But I think that was pretty fun. It reminds me of the movies where they have to just talk to a green screen.
Very true.
That's it.
And to know also that things are flipped. So my left is your right. And so we get kind of turned around which way we're going to turn. So that's
and we were learning as we were going. So these were all things that we're like, oh, yeah, let's figure this out. How do we figure that out? Okay, so very true. So anybody else want to answer? Which part did you enjoy, or which part did you enjoy performing the best?
Yeah, I had a
Oh, we're losing you, Sugar. We're losing you, Baba.
But that hot
Is
spot.
not the same as being on stage. Are in the same. We are all in different locations,
Right.
so we can't get that kind of contact and that kind of thing going on that you would have on stage, where you can react to what another actor does or some of the signal they send you when something's not going quite right. We didn't have the, but this was more like maybe making a TV show,
Yeah.
because the one advantage we had is that we could review what we record, and that's sometimes
You don't get that in live
the
theater.
audience sees.
Uh-oh.
He's gone. He's
Medium,
gone.
that's another level of analysis and something that can point to work, tighten up your act a little bit.
So now, Baba Shagun, you got to play an instrument in this. Can you talk a little bit about that instrument that you played?
Yeah, you see, I got the blues.
Listen, he's in the back.
This instrument is called kalimba. This is the one I play. If you notice, it has keys on both sides of it, because this one is set up to be played just like a piano.
Oh, we keep losing. Okay, Baba Shagun, we're gonna have to come back. Okay, we're gonna have to come back because we're losing you. Okay, let me go to Monica. What was it that you wanted to say about which ones you enjoyed?
Oh, Lyrical Land. This is my plug for my girl, Lily Forbes. I enjoy her so much and her music. And if you have a chance to check her out on YouTube, please do that.
Yes.
She also has a couple out. Okay. Telling the story, I really think that she helped to move that particular story along with her emotion and her beautiful voice. So since she's not here, I had to put that in for her. That's it.
We thank you. We thank you, and she does do a beautiful job. So let me ask this: what was there anything that you didn't know about that you learned while about African traditions and what have you that you learned while working on this piece? And that's for everybody. Sorry, that's for everybody. Was there anything that you learned? I didn't know what goober peas were.
Just not to piggyback off what Monica said, she had members in her family that told those stories and had griots. I'm from New York City. I'm a city slicker. I didn't have that. So all of that was brand new to me. So
That's awesome. Anybody else learn anything?
I was actually familiar with all the stories. Actually, I remember having the book of the People Could Fly at my house. I didn't. I grew up as my father's a preacher, so like in that sense of storytelling, but not. I grew up in the AME church, so there has been many of art projects, many of going to see plays and all that stuff that centered around these type of stories, and my church having and my school. I went to all black schools, like from kindergarten to college. So I'm familiar with mostly all of the stories. There's a great opportunity to be able to, perform it and do it for people.
Awesome. So, Carol, did you have any? Let me give you the. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I learned that maybe I did know, but it was kind of, subliminal and I wasn't really paying attention is that, yes, the art of African American storytelling is dying. So where we have, the Mother Goose stories, and that's readily available and at the fingertips of our young children, we don't have Brer Rabbit, we don't have Anansi and the Spider, we don't have any of these fables that are passed down and told to us. I remember one of the first animated stories that my mother told to me was a Brer Rabbit story, which is why now I like to be animated and act. And so I think that we need to, it's an opportunity here to change this and change the way that we look at how we tell our stories. And so that's what I discovered through this process. Like there was a time gap between when my mom told me these stories and to now, because I have children and I did not share with them Brer Rabbit. She shared those stories with them, but I did not. I lost touch, and so I was surprised that that it wasn't readily available. They didn't learn about it at school. So yes, that's what I learned from the process.
Awesome. So, and then talking about that, letting the traditions die, that was one of my favorite lines in there. Is like it's being replaced with cell phones and YouTube and video games. We love YouTube because we're putting it on YouTube. But yes, it is that the tradition is dying. We don't share as much as we used to, and that is part of why this is so beautiful to put this out again. So let me ask this: what lessons can be learned? Do you think that can be learned from these different stories? And you can pick it, like any particular one, like the Yes Sir Chief. What can be learned from Yes Sir Chief? What can a kid today take from Yes Sir Chief, or from any of the pieces?
Think before you act.
Before you act. And everything is connected.
So you affect one thing, it could affect something else that's very important to you. So it's not always good to jump to conclusions. You got to think out. Think before you speak. And because you want to take under consideration, another person's feelings, and it may not be your intention to hurt, but you're not in control of how it's received.
Speak up. Yes, sir, Chief. You don't sit there and just say yes because of somebody powerful, whatever. Just tell and have your own mind. Not everything. Not to say students don't listen to your teachers, but not everything is gold coming out of people's mouths.
Yeah.
Who's in leadership roles? Sometimes it's okay to question in an appropriate way.
That's what I used to tell my students. Just because I say it doesn't make it gospel. You need to go find out for yourself. You go research for yourself, because they will attach that to you.
Oh yeah.
They'll attach it. Well, Monica, how about you?
Yes, Dee, how about me? that we have to overcome anything. That we have the power of our ancestors. Their blood runs through our veins. So, we have a lot of things going on right now, and a lot of things that we could be frustrated about, feel like we can't overcome. But yes, I am my ancestors, because my ancestors were very strong, and you are your ancestors. So you can fly above the mountains of adversity and over the oceans of inferiority, because you got that inside you.
Awesome. And now that's a great place to segue to the last part. Do you all have any encouragement or any words of encouragement for other creatives who are like us? We started this together. Any words of encouragement for those who are interested in putting up their own pieces or telling their own stories?
If you could think it, you can do it. So just don't let anyone change your course of action or dissuade you from pursuing what's in your heart and what you have a passion to do. One of the things that I think makes us very successful is that we all have a passion to succeed and do a quality product that we put out, do a quality production. So yeah, don't listen to the naysayers.
There we go. There we go.
And you should always surround yourself with, positive people, people that, you know, number one, if you're seeking consultation, you want them to have the background, the accolades to direct you in whatever form it is that you are planning to put up. But also have positive people around you that can, encourage you, like Kevin said, to continue to do your work. This stuff doesn't happen overnight, and it's development, in phases that you go through, and it changes, and so you can't get discouraged. So it's always good to have a group of positive folks around to support you.
Also, remember, it only takes three things to do theater: someone to do it, somewhere to do it, and somebody to see it. So, someone, ETA, somewhere, the internet, someone to see it, you who are watching this right now. So remember, it doesn't, however you do it, I try to explain that all the time. The classroom, in your bedroom, in your living room, outside, you can put on a show as long as you have those three elements. Once you have those three elements, you're done. That's theater.
Awesome. And Monica, I'm coming back to you. What words of encouragement you got?
Everyone has expressed it appropriately and completely. So ditto
Awesome.
to what everyone else said.
I love it. Okay, so we have some projects upcoming. Kevin, if you'd like to speak on yours coming up.
Okay, our next project is a play is that I wrote or I co-wrote. Um, it's my first playwriting venture called Everything Glitters Ain't Gold. It's been a very challenging too because I never considered myself a writer and I always avoided writing. But I was approached with an idea, and they needed a little help, and just something just took hold of me, and I created this piece. So like I said, this will be our next production, and I'm looking forward to it. I am directing it, and along with who's assisting me is Monica is assisting me. Brian is my engineer, my virtual engineer, and D is my tech. So we're trying to put something together nice for the world. So if you can and you're able, join us for this wonderful play. Everything glitters ain't gold. Coming soon.
Awesome, thank you. Carol, you want to wait on it or?
So tentatively, we do have a town hall that's coming up on November 12th, and it gives us an opportunity to talk with the community about local theater, diversity and inclusion in local theater. So that's more to come on that. Just look out for it on our websites and our social media outlets. It would be really nice to have you participate. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. And you will be able to, as soon as things are up and running again, you'll be able to see Talk That Talk live with more, as a full show production, the way we are used to and love to do it. And we hope that all the families, like it says, family shows. We hope all the families will come out and see us. And you can go to our social media where you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at ETA Theatrics, and be kept up on what is upcoming, what's coming down the pipeline, and get information about when that show is going to be presented. We hope to have you all there with us. So again, I think we're done. We want to say thank you to all of you for joining us. We want to say a special thank you to the Leon County School System, and a huge thank you to the Leon County Leroy Collins and just the public library system. We appreciate your support and partnership, and we look forward to more in the future. And thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you very, very soon. Thank you from ETA.
So here's a song called Through the Fire. Yes, thank you. Broken lives and broken wings of men, so you can leave and fly again and move to the place that love begins. Broken lives and broken wings of men, so you can leave and fly again and move to the place that love has begun. It's so awesome how this fight can heal, even when it hurts so bad. It's awesome how this fight can heal, even when it hurts so bad. Through the fire, wounded men make me smile again. Through the fire, hold again. Through the fire, up to my name, make me smile again. Through the fire, hold again. Broken lives and broken wings, love can mend, so you can leave and fly again and live to the place that love is prepared. Love will take your life and make it new, so you can leave and smile again and live to the place that love is prepared. So awesome how this fight can heal, even when it hurts so bad. It's awesome how this fight can heal, even when it hurts so bad. Through the fire, look at me, make me smile again. Through the fire, hold again. Through the fire, soothe my pain, make me smile again. Through the fire, I'm whole again. 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 I'm whole again.